And let us begin with prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, we implore you to hear our prayers and to lighten the darkness of our hearts by your gracious visitation. For you live and reign with the Father and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Well, we are in Genesis chapter 44, the second half there. I found this slide, which was a little bit better than the other one I had in terms of perspective. This has all of the back and forth of the visits of Joseph's brothers going to Egypt. So here's Hebron, and so you've got they're presuming they took the same route, which is probably about right. And we talked about how the length there, probably 150, in terms of the length of time that it takes to take the travel. The first trip when they go and they don't know what they're getting into, but Joseph knows them, but they don't know him, and he gives them back gives them plenty enough grain to meet after first calling them possibly spies, but says, you got to come back. You can't do business with me unless you bring your little brother Benjamin. I'd like to see that guy. And of course then they find that their money has been returned in the sack, so something's up. And then we went through the return trip, the second time when Jacob finally relents and is willing to, with great sadness, does not want to lose his son Benjamin, but they realize without Benjamin going, they can't go and return to Egypt to buy grain again, and where Judah has made a pledge and promise to say, I will offer myself if anything happens to the boy. And the visit goes great. They're always kind of kept back on their heels by how this foreigner, Joseph, who they don't know is their brother yet, how he is treating them. Because the second time they come back, Simeon is released from his captivity. They go to Joseph's house for the feast. He seats them in order of their age, and they are kind of scratching their head about this. How does he know our ages? And then they are sent on their way again early the next morning, and Joseph has arranged, as this test continues, after he has treated Benjamin with a very generous portion at the meal that they all eat in the same room, though not at the same table with Joseph. And on the way out then, Joseph has sent his steward or his servant to waylay the brothers, and he finds the master's cup, the silver cup, and we talked a little bit about that. And then they are brought back. The brothers are dumbfounded. You even have, we had ended near the verse 16, 17. I love this when Judah says, and we see Judah coming. This is really marvelous in a kind of Christological way, because we know Judah. How did earlier on in the story, Judah is kind of a cold-blooded conniver, where he says, maybe there's a hint of compassion here. Let's not kill our brother. Let's sell him, which is just a little bit better than let's kill our brother. And of course, we didn't even look at the whole Judah and Tamar episode, and we might have cause to go back to do that once we look at the blessings that Jacob gives the brothers, because it's interesting how Judah, with all of his failings, still becomes the one who is given the messianic promise. Jesus is from the house and line of Judah, as much as he is later on from the house and lineage of David. But where Judah, confronted with this crime, they don't blame Benjamin. There's no acrimony, and in fact, they are so sure of that they have done nothing wrong. They say, if you search our bags, if you find this missing, stolen cup of your master, that person can be put to death, and the rest of us will be your slaves. And then, of course, Joseph kind of switches that around when they determine that it's Benjamin, and everybody's kind of scratching their head. And Joseph says, no, I'll keep Benjamin as a slave. The rest of you guys can go. And that's kind of where we find ourselves, although Judah, in verse 16, where he's just so dumbfounded, but he kind of now becomes the spokesman. It's not Reuben, the firstborn, It's not Simeon and Levi, the violent guys who you don't want to invite to your post-circumcision party because they're very poorly mannered. But Judah says, when he's trying to make heads or tails of this, what shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? I don't know what to say. How can we clear ourselves? It appears we can't. We don't know how this has happened, yet it's happened. God has found out the guilt of your servants. So, there is still that understanding. They're coming to that place of repentant hearts, as they've noticed at other times, as we've kind of pointed out, where they call back and say, this is because of Joseph. Or remember how we heard him crying from the pit. I was just talking with Judith about was that a TV miniseries?
Yes.
Just called Joseph. And Ben Kingsley was Potiphar, Leslie Ann Warren as Potiphar's wife, and Martin Landau as Jacob. And as it kind of portrays the action here, it's kind of interesting to when the brothers are accused as they're coming back. You get to see the drama played out in a dramatic fashion there on the screen. But they did not a bad job, I thought, of kind of telling the story. They don't see the Christological center of it, which is not surprising. But it's a respectful, kind of honest. They're not going off into weird, creative bits and pieces by bringing strange things into the text, but they do kind of reflect upon this. When they show the brothers after they had put Joseph down in the well, their anger overcomes them. Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him. Back in the earlier chapters after Joseph has interpreted dreams, and much to their ire, and you hear them while they're trying to sleep at night, but you can hear off to the cistern here that their little brother is just crying out, and some of them are angry and defensive, and some of them are like, oh my gosh, should we go help them? But just the dynamic and of all of these men, and none of them doing what they ought to have done, and yet now we're coming to the point of all of these testings, the Lord's testings, Joseph's testings of his brothers. And so beginning with verse 18, we kind of have Judah coming to the fore. He becomes, we kind of already saw that just the verses previously, where he becomes kind of the spokesman for the brothers. And this section through the end of chapter 44 is kind of a narrative, a retelling by Judah, and kind of a recapitulation of the story, and where he becomes a central character now, because he's kind of the mediator with everything that being a mediator means. The foe in his mind here is, or the enemy, the antagonist is this vice pharaoh of Egypt. Joseph, who he doesn't know is Joseph, of course. And yet Judah is, in a very measured way and in a very gospel way, as we see when we get to the end of it, this is incredible. This is an amazing picture of, keep me, let the boy go free. With, not a pretend story, not a piece of dramatic fiction, but a man who says, I'll stay the slave, let my brother go. I will stay in his place. But let's read we'll take this piece by piece here in some chunks, but if someone could read Genesis chapter 44, and let's do that first chunk at verses 18 through 23, please.
Then Judah went up to him and said, O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not your anger burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself. My Lord asked his servants, saying, Have you a father or a brother? And he said to my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and a younger brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set eyes on him. We said to my Lord, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. Then you said to your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall not see my face again.
Okay. Here is real intercession. I mean, this is, and it's Judah, a very famous biblical image to paint here, apparently. This is an old 17th century one. Gelder, I'm not sure, but he makes everybody look a little bit European there. Looks like Joseph is well fed. He's got the cup in his hand, and here, of course, then is Judah. And here they're just portraying them as alone in the room together. There's another similar one. We've seen a bunch from this Tissot, I don't know if he's a French guy or how to pronounce his name, but from the early 1900s, which obviously has Joseph as a much younger looking guy. How old is Joseph?
Probably about 30.
He's probably, if he was
7 good years.
Yeah, if you kind of do the math from the pieces we have, when he was elevated by the Pharaoh, he was 30 years old. Then you've got 7 years of plenty, where they've been saving grain, so 37, and now they're 2 years into the famine, so he's 39. So it's, they haven't seen him since he was a teenager, right? So it's a long time. You wonder, I don't know, as I was watching the movie the other day, I was thinking, of course he looks like an Egyptian. He walks like an Egyptian, all these things. And that's a cultural reference to the 1980s. But the way it's portrayed in the TV show is that he sees them and he's very emotional about it. He actually turns away. He says, "My brothers are here," and then he turns around and they begin to talk to him, but they don't recognize him. They're kind of they're bowing down and petitioning for grain and survival, and then he has this conversation with them, and when it's done, he realizes they don't know who I am. But it's kind of an interesting interaction there. So this is a pretty young-looking Joseph here, but you've got Judah. And listen, I mean, the reverence with which he comes. He's not making demands. He is a petitioner who comes humbly. And again, in the behind this, with the big story of God and His mercy for sinners, this is kind of a type of Christ interceding before the Father for you, except it's really the son of Judah and the son of David and the son born of Mary, who is the Savior, who is the one who will pay the ransom, be the substitute with his life, with death. And so there's just a little snapshot of that there. Mark, you had a comment you were going to?
No.
Okay. And so Judah kind of rehearses, and the idea that he's going, please let your servant just, can I petition to you? Let me, give me your ears just for a moment. We know you're angry because your cup has been stolen, and we honestly don't know. It's not in the character of our brother to do this, but we've found it in his sack. So we don't know what's up with that. We have no explanation for it. But, let me make our case for us. Don't let your anger burn against your servant, because you are like Pharaoh himself, which is absolutely true. I mean, who has told Joseph that he's like Pharaoh himself? I mean, Pharaoh has basically said, this is guy, when he talks, that's the voice of Pharaoh, and here's his chariot, and when you hear him speak, it's me speaking. So his kind of as this, the authority and ambassador of Pharaoh himself. And he brings up the, oh sir, you've been, inquiring of us since we ran into you the first time. You always ask about a father, and yes, we tell you about our father. In fact, you just asked, back in, this comes up later when Joseph reveals himself and asks again, is my father alive? I'm Joseph. Is my father alive? Your father, my father, our father, is he alive? And I was thinking, well, hasn't that been asked and answered before? And it was at the table, when they were having their noon lunch at Joseph's house back in chapter 43. when he, verse 27, he inquires, Joseph comes home for the dinner, they bow to him again, he inquires about their welfare and says, "Is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" So he's heard that, and yet he'll want to hear that again. This affection and love for Jacob, not just this filial love, or this love for the father, or this love for the brothers that we're going to actually see kind of blossom again, the way it should have been, but wasn't. And the way Judah then explains the love, that if Benjamin doesn't return home to his father, that's going to kill our father. We used to lie to our father. We had a brother, and we lied about his death and just bloodied up his coat. But this is going to really hurt our father, and we love our father and don't want that to happen to him. And this child is listen to how he describes him when he says, we have a father, an old man, and a younger brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead. And now think of this. Judah is saying this to who? And Joseph could at any moment say, no, your brother's okay. But, he's listening to this, and, as a confession of sorts, a penitential heart, an honesty born of the situation of fear, and yet Judah is also going to say, here I am, you can take me. His brother is dead. That's Joseph. So, of course, Joseph is not dead. He's the inquisitor here. And he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. I mean, this isn't just painting a teary-eyed picture of, oh man, he really likes his kid. I mean, Jacob has many sons, and this is something else that kind of bore itself out in the children of my old age. And it definitely comes off without showing favoritism, yet it was Joseph and Benjamin, of all the brothers with some of their bad habits, there was this great affection portrayed on screen. And now, at this point, the brothers have, are concerned about their father. They're concerned about their father rather than, what lie shall we tell our father about our dad, to hide our guilt about our horrific deed of selling our brother. Well, we'll tell him that an animal got the coat. It's all bloody, look. And they live with that for whatever these 20 years or so. But then you said to your servants, Joseph, you said to us, well, bring your brother down to me so I can set my eyes on him. And we told we told you that, boy, no, Benjamin's not going to leave his father. The father's not going to allow Benjamin to come down because our father would die. And again, I mean, it keeps on going back to this this affection for the father. That how is Jacob? How is our father affected by this? Then you said to your servant, well, if Benjamin doesn't come down, you won't be getting any more grain. You will not see my face again. So now here Judah's plea continues here. Could someone read verses 24 through 29, please?
When we went back to your servant, my father, he told him the words of my Lord. And when our father said, go again, buy us a little food, we said, we cannot go down. If our youngest brother goes with us, then we will go down. For we cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left me, and I said, surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since. If you take this one also from me, and harm happens to him, you will bring down my gray hairs in evil to Sheol.
So in verse 27, where Judah continues the story, your servant, my father, it's actually your father too, said to us, again, painting the picture of my wife, my beloved wife, my favorite wife, she bore me 2 sons. And see how Judah is a little bit vague here. One left me. He doesn't fill out the details there. And this was something else that I mean, we talked about this. Do you think Jacob knew?
That this was Joseph he was talking
That Jacob the father knew what the brothers had done, or that something had happened with their dislike of him, the fact that he would elevate a young brother, the youngest brother, rather than the oldest brother. In the movie, it's funny, that's what's fresh in my mind, so I keep on seeing how they played it out dramatically, that the brothers are such jerks that Jacob later on, when he's angry about the various things he's suffering, he is not complimentary of his sons. He does not have a very high regard for them because he thinks they're capable of doing terrible things. And he is not far from the... Of course, Jacob is likewise got his own track record earlier. But the two sons, and all the time Judah is speaking to the other son. So the dramatic irony here is magnificent. Is that the right term for that part of... we know something that Judah doesn't know. One left to me, that is, Joseph is dead, and surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since. Boy, if he's been torn to pieces, he'd be dead. But at any rate, I haven't seen him. I have never seen him since. So if I lose Benjamin, I go down, my gray hairs down to Sheol. We've talked before about this image of Sheol, which is, in this case, Sheol means what?
Hell.
It just means dying. Yeah, it's not quite hell. It's it can be, depending on kind of the context there. But everybody dies, everybody goes to Sheol. As death is this entry into that ending of human life. But then again, depending on the context, it can be, of course, the place of eternal punishment as well. So let's go from verse 30 here to the end of the chapter. Could someone read that, please?
Now therefore, when I came to thy servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass, when he seeth that the lad is not with us, that he will die. And thy servants shall bring down the gray hairs of thy servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For thy servant became surety for the lad unto my father, saying, I will bring him not unto thee, then I shall bear the blame to my father forever. Now therefore I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad, a bondman to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me, lest peradventure I see the evil that shall come on my father?
I think less peradventure. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's a big word.
That's classy.
Nothing but class.
So for whose sake does Judah want Joseph to spare Benjamin?
His father's sake?
Yeah, for his father's sake. That's marvelous. And then as you've got him where Judah is like Jesus. He's a type of Christ here in a most magnificent way. Because we already heard before that back in the previous chapter he had said, let me see, where was that? Where he makes the offer. Where is that? My eyes are not.
33. Now therefore please let your servant remain instead of the boy.
Well, no, but yeah, but that's where where does he say it to his father in the previous, is that the previous chapter? He says, chapter 43, verse 9, he says, send the boy with me, Judah says, to Israel, it says here, not just Jacob, but to Israel, the patriarch of the promise. Send the boy with me, that we may live and not die, and you also, in our little ones, I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. let me bear the blame forever if I don't bring him back. We could have already made 2 trips, as Judah says. And then Davis, as you point out there, verse 33, how magnificent this is. Now, therefore, please, this is the humble petitioner. And yet it is even, if you've ever, kind of heard the construction of the legal description of our justification, where we stand in the court of God, our sins are manifest, and before us, the mirror of the law shows us the sin of our bodies and souls, and where Jesus is Satan is the prosecuting attorney, and who is saying, this one's guilty. You are guilty of all these things, of which you can say, yes, I am. And yet the defense attorney and the counselor with him, the Holy Spirit, take up your case and your cause and plead for you. And not just making your case, but also then as your substitute. This is marvelous language. I mean, Judah has pulled a Jesus on this. Therefore, please let your servant, meaning me, Judah, remain. You're going to imprison the boy, enslave the boy, make the boy a servant. That'll be me. I've made a pledge to my father. Now I will fulfill that pledge. Your servant will remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord. Let the boy go back with his brothers, because it's about his father. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? Because I made a pledge, I promised. And he will. This is a Judah of quite a different temperament, and where love born of faith has kind of blossomed here, where the past practices of the boys is kind of disappearing. And it is marvelous that in none of this are the boys, throw Benjamin under the bus or say, and that was one thing in the movie yesterday. I was kind of watching for how they did this, because right when they cut the bags open and they find after all the brothers' bags are cut open, finally they cut Benjamin's bag open and the silver cup comes out, and Simeon, who's always the hothead, again in the made-for-TV presentation of this, comes over and he's like about gonna kill Benjamin, saying, "Why would you do this to us?" But that's, again, we're not told that in the text. That's just a dramatic rendering, because quite beautifully we don't see that. Even as bad as these brothers have been, when they find the cup in Benjamin's sack, they don't say anything as to suggest that they believe that Benjamin is guilty. They are overwhelmed by the mystery of this as everybody else. They are absolutely confounded and confused, but they are not saying, okay, leave the boy and we'll be on our way. And Judah becomes the spokesman for that position. It really is a marvelous picture. And just as Jesus offered himself for us, I mean, here is, again, a type of Christ, a type of Jesus where Judah offers. Yes, Judah.
I also think that the weight of sin of 20 plus years or whatever it was really laid on those brothers all those years.
Yeah.
And how could they face...
You hope so. Yeah. I mean,
how could they face their father again? Any of them, Judah especially, and look their father in the eye?
When such a big deal was made out of, Jacob saying, "I don't want to send Benjamin back," and well, we got to eat, we need food, and we'll take care of Benjamin. And but yeah, I mean, the weight of old sin, and guilt and shame from guilt for things that we did, shame for things that maybe have been done against us, and that lasts a long time. It can last a lifetime. And yet here, breaking through the midst of that, and you might think, boy, this testing was brutal. But it brings them to the place where, as we will see, we'll see Joseph revealing himself to them with the simple words, "I am Joseph. I am your brother." He doesn't even have to he'll say, "I'm the one you sold into slavery." He could say a lot more. He goes, it's been a bad bunch of years, guys. But he almost is, even there, protecting, you know, they are brought to repentance. And even there, he's almost in kindness and compassion. You know, he's not dismissing their sin. He speaks of it. But even when, like as we'll hear, he sends everybody else out of the room. He's like, even they're protecting their reputation amidst their shame and amidst their recognition of their guilt. I am the guilty one. And here's the guy we sold, you know, and presumed as good as dead, likely, and yet he's not. In fact, he becomes our Redeemer, our Savior, the feeder, the provider for our nations, through whom God is going to save all the nations. So it's not even just a bigger story than them. It's the biggest story possible. It's the story of history, the story of God so loving the world. But this really is a, you know, when Judah, you know, he confesses their sin. I mean, this is a marvelous, I mean, you can kind of break this down where he says that, you know, God, you know, as we saw in verse 16, you know, earlier from last week, you know, God has found out the guilt of your servant. So he's, you know, we can't justify ourselves. We don't even know what's happened. We know we didn't steal the cup. That's one thing we know we didn't do. But that doesn't matter because the cup is in our possession, and now I have to kneel before you and try to make the case. And then it also, I mean, his whole dialogue with, or his plea making, it's more of a soliloquy, I suppose, with Joseph is, you know, it just kind of pulsates with this deep love concerning their aged father, because of this strong connection that Jacob has with Benjamin, the only remaining son of his beloved wife, Rachel, and this close bond between the father and this youngest son. And the father didn't want to even let Benjamin come down because this is what he feared. And now this is exactly what has transpired, and we cannot let our father die of grief. We care about what happens to our father, even in light of how we have been terrible sons and lied to him, but now we won't. So Judah steps forward and says, take me. Please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord. Let the boy go back with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father. I mean, it breathes that spirit of love Judah's not going to shrink away from doing the thing that he promised to do, and he will do it. And at great cost to him. You know, he doesn't know what the life of the slave will be, but okay, doesn't matter. I promised, and Benjamin must get back to our father. Let's go to chapter 45. We'll do the first part here, verses 1 through 3. And let me see if yeah. This is another one. When you look at the images that are available online with some of the older, this is from the 1800s, 1860. But, you know, some of these things have just been painted and painted and painted. It really is a remarkable thing that artists have been inspired by this story in amazing. It's funny when, maybe we can do this more next time. We can orient ourselves as we read the text here. This is obviously going to be Joseph here, Benjamin, and then...
What's the name of the cat?
What's that?
Is that a cat?
There's no cat. It's a leg on a...
Oh, this looks like, yeah, it looks like...
No, brown thing. He's kissing the boy, and right behind that little... I swear that looks like a cat.
Oh, there's some donkeys loaded up here.
What is... That's a cat, I swear. It looks like a cat.
No.
That's his hair.
That's just his hair. It's a toupee, man. Come on, now everybody knows. But, you know, that moment of revelation, you know, God's self-revealing. Again, this is another kind of a very vivid way that the God's Word, that the Holy Scriptures speak, when at that moment of revelation. I mean, it's like Jesus on Easter Sunday evening when he goes to the upper room and they're bolted in there, and he shows himself to the disciples. John chapter 20, and peace be with you. Peace, peace. That's another theme running through here. Joseph wishes them, peace. Let your hearts not be troubled. And at that same moment where the risen Christ, who said, now I'm going to die and then I'll rise, and they're still like, oh my gosh, this is Jesus and he's risen from the dead. Yeah, just like he said. Everything is always like he said. Even if it's hidden from our understanding or our eyes, yet what he said can be believed firmly because it is true. The baby in the manger, God's divinity is hidden from our sight. And yet certain parts of the revelation that, shepherds come and bow down before and worship this child, or magi from the east, prostrate themselves and bring gifts to, who is this? Mary from Nazareth, Joseph from up there, the hidden God. Luther was big on using that way of speaking, where God hides himself in our flesh. Now reveals himself in that flesh by the miraculous events, and on the Mount of Transfiguration for a moment they're going, wow, it is, where he shines as bright as the sun. He reveals himself, and then yet before the Passion, he also says, now don't say anything about what you have seen until after the Son of Man is risen from the dead. And so there's this, this kind of tension between the hiddenness of God, who still comes hidden, who gathers us into his very presence. This same Lord, King of Kings, begotten of the Father, hidden in bread and wine. Hidden there, but present in bread and wine, of which he says, this is my body. Now you take, eat. This is my blood shed for you. But these moments of revelation where, again, back up in the upper room where Jesus shows the disciples who, and again, it's easy for me to say, those guys really should have known, He did tell them, and yet that moment of it is him. And it's not a phantasm or some other light show or something like that, or a ghost or something. No, it's flesh and blood. And the next week, the next Sunday, when they're all at church again with Jesus, and he shows Thomas the wound, physical, healing of the divine body, the one born of Mary, born of woman, who retains his being man, being made man for us. And so that same moment of as we'll hear I am Joseph, or as we hear Jesus in the upper room say, peace. And again, same thing, because you say the same thing again. What's the first thing you say when you've risen from the dead? Well, peace be with you. And as the Father has sent me, now I'm sending you. He creates the ministry. He's going to send preachers to forgive sins, to repentant sinners, to withhold forgiveness from the unrepentant. As if that's the most important thing coming out of this death and ransom paid, now to proclaim this absolution for the world. But when you look at, it is kind of fun to see the various, again, these are a painter's putting it on the canvas what he thinks. Like, this guy doesn't look like, oh my gosh, his eyes looking like he's like he doesn't trust the situation at all. This guy kissing hands. This guy, overcome, covers his eyes, and they're like, this guy kind of even recoiling back and being amazed. Can this be? But that is that moment of, we're hidden no more. I am Joseph. Let's read this. The first couple of verses of chapter 45. Joseph revealing himself to his brothers. Could you read verses 1 through 3, please?
Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence.
What do you think the dismayed at his presence means? Or, Karen, what do you have there in the King James Version?
And his brothers could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence.
Okay, dismayed, troubled. And what do you think's behind that?
They knew that someone they thought was dead is alive, and that's a real shock to begin with.
Not just someone, but the guy they sold. Yeah, this is, so, and they'll have hints of this with this fear of revenge.
Yeah.
Because, an eye for an eye, this is, we did something evil. This isn't just an unkind cut. This is this is hatred of the neighbor, where the neighbor is the brother. Yes, Catherine?
Well, and he looked totally like an Egyptian, because he had adopted all their culture and their mannerisms and their dress. And Egyptians looked totally different from Israelites because they had different clothing, they wore cosmetics.
I was going to say, in the movies they have a lot more eye makeup on.
Yeah, they were real big on the eye makeup. And, they did have darker skin because they were in the sun and stuff. They just hairstyle, hat, whatever, they just look totally different.
I mean, it's not to carry it too far, but it's almost like he is risen moment, because whether or not they thought Joseph was dead, they certainly didn't think he was this guy that they've been dealing with for the past couple of months. And so they're gobsmacking, jaw-dropping, with a little bit of fear, dismay, being troubled by this. What happens now? Because we all know what we did and how Joseph responds to that. To not only saying who he is, recognizing, talk about the elephant in the room, as he'll mention. Yeah, no, I'm the one you sold into slavery, but now come closer to me. And he speaks peaceably to them rather than, oh, I've been waiting for this moment. Now revenge is mine. Catherine, one more time, and then Davis.
Plus, when he was taken away from them, he was treated like a slave. And now here the guy standing before them is like right below Pharaoh and has totally climbed up the ladder and is a major authority figure.
Yeah. This is, Davis, what was your comment?
I would say, you mentioned this is sort of kind of like a come to Jesus moment. The thing that popped in my head was St. Paul on the road to Damascus. The parallels there are astonishing.
With a revelation of...
I am Joseph. You did all this stuff to me.
Yeah, or Saul, why are you persecuting me? And
exactly.
Or, who are you? there Paul needs a little bit more information, which the Lord fills out, yeah.
Do you think up until this point he was talking through an interpreter?
Well, see...
Yeah, now he's talking in their language.
This is the other thing where it never makes it... the way it's kind of played out in the movie, and it was interesting because there was a moment where they're all in the upper room, or not the upper room, in the room where he's going to reveal to them, and he comes down and he speaks to them, where before he sat at the separate table, he would work through the interpreter, and so in the movie there's this moment like, how is this that you know our language? And this is right before Joseph has to leave the room again because of his great emotion. Joseph's servant says, "Oh, my master is well traveled," and this is how they handled it in the movie. He's well traveled and he knows many languages and stuff. So they kind of added that to that. But there is the moment where now he is, before there is, this presumption of speaking to his brothers through someone else, an interpreter between Egyptian and Hebrew, but now he speaks to them himself. Now in these last days, now Joseph says, "I am your brother." So yeah, that's another thing, like all those little bits and pieces, like ordering the brothers at the table, by age and stuff, and like how does this guy, how does he, when he says, don't you know I'm the kind of guy that can find things out? Like, yeah, he seems like he can find everything out. It's like he's almost omniscient. But the drama of this moment with, Joseph could not control himself. And here's this, what was that? Finally, this has been, hard on him. The testing has been of his brothers. But, we've already seen before where Joseph had to leave the room and come back, where he, when he saw Benjamin, this is back in chapter 43, where, he sees them for the first time again, and he has to go away for a second, collect himself. But now, what is this? It's not like, now I got him, but it's relief, and it's joy which he wants for his brothers too, because he means no harm to them, which they, at least some of them, are automatically going to, thinking, boy, we did this to Joseph, so what's natural for him to, if we did evil against him, we should get evil back. And that's not the way of, there is a consequence for evil, but it's not the way of our God, who is merciful, who works out the most incredible reconciliation. It is beyond belief. It is ridiculous, and yet it is true, and it is most marvelous in our eyes. We can, with this little one, with Joseph and his brothers, and most certainly with the one into which we have been brought, this great reconciliation. God is in Christ Jesus reconciling the world to himself, not counting their sins against them. Wow. Your sins are forgiven. Mark.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at this kind of with new eyes. And Joseph said to his brothers, and this is where we were talking about the interpreter or whatever, I am Joseph. And this is almost the first words in their language that they've heard him say. And he drops a name that they had. He was always the brother who is no more. I don't know that they ever dropped that name before. And then they go, is my father still alive? Okay, we've been talking through interpreters, and you're thinking that I just like to know.
I've been asking about your father.
Yeah, but it's not my father.
Now it's my father.
My father, but
or our father.
Or were you just saying that?
Yeah.
Just oh yeah, he's doing great. He's still alive. I want to know, is he really still alive?
Yeah.
Because everything that happens after this will kind of depend on that.
This, in chapter 45, beginning of verse 2, he wept aloud. I mean, just think of this moment of relief for him, and also for his brothers. You're going to hear this later on in the chapter as well, when he says, no, come close. It's one thing to say the announcement and then say, okay, guards, take these guys away and execute them because they sold me into slavery, and I'm not liking that. But he actually, this little detail of, make everyone go out from me. So the only ones in the room are he and his brothers. There's no Egyptians there. I noticed this note in the Lutheran Study Bible, which I thought this was a kind of a good nuance to think about. No one stays in the room so that Joseph could protect his own reputation with the Egyptians, speak candidly with his brothers, and protect his brothers' reputation regarding their sale of Joseph into... I mean, there is a sensitivity and a gentleness and kindness in this. Not just like, everybody out here, I want to have some time with my family. But it's, they're still in the process of recognizing their sin, the consequence of their sin, and the mercy of God in the midst of this, which they recognize by hearing their brother isn't dead, he's in front of us, it's this man, he just announced it, I am Joseph. And now, I like that, is my father still alive? He's always been asking about your father, but it's really, it's our father, their father. Let me see here. But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. I have another, here's some other, just for the fun of looking at old art, and so I can act fancy. Same idea. Here's Joseph making the announcement. Here's Benjamin, who maybe it wouldn't have been that young, but still would have been maybe a teenager or something, older teenager. And then you've got you just look at some of the reactions here, from the brothers who, again, this is how it's painted. But, and again, you don't know how the individual brothers felt other than, but how he knows that they are reacting to this as he brings them even closer. And where he's gonna just fall on their neck and they're gonna weep as it dawns on them. Right now they're dismayed, but I love some of the, here's one tucking his head away, kind of a prayerful look there, and kind of the eyes of, could it be? Some brothers with great excitement reaching out, another kind of in a humble position, maybe that's Simeon or something. Just, the various reactions, one kind of turns away. But, the high drama, there's no story better than the Bible story. And no details more magnificent than the Bible details. But let's look ahead to maybe, we got a couple minutes. Let's look to the next section here. I'll start reading in verse 4. And we'll get this in front of us here and maybe make a couple comments, but we'll probably be able to pick up with this next year, because that's the next time. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." So even that, now it's, come close. He doesn't call in the guards. There's going to be shown affection, and so he can speak to their hearing. So they know what the situation is, and it's one that they don't need to be dismayed at or terrified at, even though they have done what they have done. But they're also, by their manner of reacting through these tests, this is, they haven't shrunk from the possibility of a costly sacrifice. Typified by Judah, who says, "I'll stay, everybody else go." But so Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said again, "I am your brother, Joseph, whom," again here, now recognizing what they did. He doesn't dismiss it, acknowledges it, "whom you sold into Egypt." But then he doesn't, start a list in a harangue there. This is kind of the application of law, a proper distinction of law and gospel. You sold me into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me. Think of what that means for everything that Joseph experienced, from being hated by his brothers, being thrown down to a pit, the cistern, by his brothers, being sold by his brothers, becoming a servant in Potiphar's house, wrongly accused of rape. All of these things that happened. It's just part of the story. It's Joseph's life, and he can say and see through that, boy, isn't this hiddenly? Joseph didn't go down to Egypt and the next day become vice pharaoh. No, he, all of these decades of suffering and prison and accusation and loss. No, God sent him. God is behind this. God is the doer. And he uses believers and unbelievers. And he's at work in your life and my life in ways in which we might often scratch our head and shed tears, or wonder, how is this so? Or why have you forsaken me? And like Joseph in prison, where it kept on that beautiful short little litany where it says, "But the Lord was with Joseph." The Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. Joseph, who had been given this revelation from God, these dreams about what will happen. And Joseph believed these things and faithfully preached them, even though it probably didn't help his case with his brothers who didn't like him. "For God sent me before you to preserve life." Getting back to something as simple as the grain. This, at base behind this is food that helps people, nations, live rather than die. And not just nations, but God's nation, God's people. who are going to survive what is at least a pretty deep famine in that part of the world, perhaps a worldwide famine, because God has made a promise, and he will keep his promise, that the seed of the woman will crush the serpent's head, and that in Abraham all nations of the world shall be blessed through your seed. And right on down, all of these promises are being kept. God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine, here's God's purpose. Can he make use of war and famine? And even all the evil Satan brings. And yet he will, we had this discussion last week, it made me think of, God, you meant it for evil. You did evil, but God meant it for good. And we had the discussion, hopefully never being permissive, thinking, oh, well, I want good things to happen to all you, so I'm going to go around being as evil and selfish as I can, because I'll leave it to God to do nice things. And it made me think later on when we had talked about that, where St. Paul in Romans 5, where he says, shall we sin then? If our sin gets forgiven by a gracious God and shows God to be gracious, he asks the kind of ridiculous rhetorical question, shall we sin? Shall we sin? Let's go on sinning so that grace may abound, because God will then show how graceful he is, filled with grace, and he'll forgive our sins. So let's just sin a lot. Is that what the good news really is? I get to sin and God gets to forgive my sin? And of course, Paul's answer there is by no means. That's not the. But whatever evil that is done, even when I am a participant in it, God help me, or that Satan tries and pushes his lies, still. God's purpose, God's will be done. It's good that we ought to pray for it. The will of God is certainly done without our prayer, but we pray in this petition that it be done among us also. It is. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me. There it is again. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here. Was it them who sent him there? Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
But big picture, no. Don't get too cocky and think, oh, so you're saying we did a really wonderful thing by selling you into slavery? Is that what you're saying, Joseph? No. That's not what he's saying. It was not you with your sin and evil who sent me here, but God worked in the midst of that for his good purpose. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, kind of speaking of the position to which he has been raised, and Lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, thus says your son Joseph. And think of that moment of the father hearing that name again, and that he speaks not in the past tense, but he speaks in the present tense. God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Do not tarry. We'll pick up here in the new year. And
what kind of confession did the boys have to make to Isaiah?
Say again?
What kind of confession did they have to make to Jacob, these boys, when they come down? Can you imagine that?
Yeah, we don't hear the side conversations like, hey, boys, come back in. I want you to explain to me what the idea was behind the heavily ornamented coat of many colors or decoration that, I would imagine there's many side conversations, but, the son is returned alive. This is kind of the, it is, we can only stay with the text and maybe a good pious careful speculation, but speculation usually is kind of dangerous. So you don't want to make guesses or fill in spots that just make sense to us. But the human dynamic of it, I think, is played out quite in a very real fashion here. You don't have to add things to the text to realize to ask those kind of questions. There's other conversations that are taking place once they all return. Dad, your son, Joseph, is not dead. Let me tell you a little bit more about why this is a huge surprise for all of us. And like we said, Jacob may well have known that there, some evil had been perpetrated by the brothers who had such a probably poorly hidden anger and hatred of their brother. And yet God sent him, and God did this, and his big and blessed purpose, which even touches our salvation, is directly connected to our salvation, is right part of this story here in the Joseph and Genesis account. But we'll stop there and pick up that first Wednesday, January 1st is a Sunday, 4th. January 4th, when school is back in session here. We will